their base turned out, ours didn't. If we find a candidate to activate our base, if our African Americans and Latino communities show up, we win.
We have to get the rural voters back into the tent, even just a little bit.
Well, if it's all the same to you, I'll stick with pandering to our special interest groups. Thank you very much.
Sí se puede. Sí se puede.
Hey everybody, I'm Dom Griffin. I'm a film critic and you're watching The Armchair Auteur. It's an ongoing video series where I talk about movies at length. If you're the kind of person who loves movies, loves hearing people talk about them, please consider subscribing. Today we're going to be reviewing the new Jon Stewart movie, written and directed by The Daily Show's Jon Stewart. The film is called Irresistible. Irresistible. It's not very good. So, the basic premise of Irresistible, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I'm not going to get too deep into plot because there's like barely one. If you've seen the trailers, you already kind of know the movie. The general idea is that it follows this mayoral race in a small town in Wisconsin, and Steve Carrell plays like the main character, who's like a Democratic political campaign fixer person, and he sees a viral video of Chris Cooper playing this like former colonel, like down home heartland guy, giving a passionate speech about immigrant rights in his like town hall. And Steve Carell sees this viral video and decides this guy is like the future Democratic Party. He's the one who's gonna like help them retouch, you know, working class white folks and stuff. So he moves to the town and to convince the guy to run for mayor in his town so they can build him up in this election and then eventually on the national stage. It becomes complicated when his like arch rival slash former love interest Byrne is like the Republican version of him shows up, and she starts funneling Republican money into like his opponent. So it becomes this war between the two of them, the red state blue state thing in this small town in America. And at the same time, it's like a big political satire. So there's a lot of like gags about like how dumb the 24-hour news networks are and how political elitists don't understand like regular folk and stuff. And you kind of get the idea. Now, the issue with this movie is that it really kind of wants to have things like two ways. Like, on the one hand, it wants to be like a Frank Capra-esque moral tragedy comedy thing where we look at the state of America through like the everyman's eyes and kind of see how things have gotten so complicated and so terrible and corrupt and like, oh, I wish for the old days or whatever. But at the same time, it also wants to be this like really goofy, over the top, kind of ridiculous, you know, look at how bad modern media is. It's not good at either, really. Like, some of the gags on the more comedic side of the movie function like a little bit. Like, you're not gonna laugh very much in this movie, but you will sort of like chuckle like, yeah, that is how CNN is, or whatever, you know. But it's not really that good. And then on the drama side of things, like, it's so few and far between that there are moments where you actually deal with the political realities of the world, that when there's a moment that's like dramatic, you don't really buy into it as much because it's surrounded by gags about Steve Carell being like a liberal elitist who doesn't understand people who live in Wisconsin. Now, Steve Carell is very good in this movie. It's a pretty good comedic performance. Chris Cooper is fantastic. Like, if this was a good movie and someone just made a movie about like a former colonel running for mayor in a small town, it was Chris Cooper, and it was like actually more like a Frank Capra movie, I would totally watch that and recommend it like off the rip. He's great. Mackenzie Davis plays his daughter. She has a pretty prominent role in the film as well. She's really great. Like, the whole cast is good. Everyone they get does like their thing very well. It's just that there's this thing that happens a lot in movies made by like typical Hollywood liberals about modern politics, which is that they make like some kind of broad jokes about like, the Fox News set, you know what I mean? And like they kind of like attack those people, but they have the same Democratic Party brain thing that they have to hyper-focus on the heartland, that they kind of pull punches in all the jokes aimed at conservatives and the right, and then they really amp up all the jokes about liberals and people on the left. Except that all the jokes about liberals and people on the left aren't really like jokes. It just feels like Stewart in particular here is just nakedly sharing how like he and his peers are, and then asking you to laugh at it, but like making no efforts in the real world to change how they actually are. Like, Deborah Messing shows up, and like if you've ever seen her on Twitter, she's like an inconceivably irritating human being, and she plays just like herself for like one scene, and it's supposed to be funny, like poking fun at how like dumb and airheaded like the establishment Democrats are, and how like they look at marginalized groups as like tokens and things. But like Deborah Messing really believes all that shit. So her showing up in the movie to like parody her own actual mindset isn't really funny, because that's what these people are like. That's why they're so irritating. And a huge chunk of the movie focuses on Carrell and him not fitting into like this town because he needs like Wi-Fi and, you know, nice stuff and doesn't understand these people. But there's not like comedy out of it. It's just like it's not even uncomfortable the way like old Office humor was, where it's like, oh, it's like awkward comedy. It's not that. It's just like, it's like gesturing in the direction of comedy. It's just pointing out like differences that we all know and have more than well explored in other media over the past like 15, 20 years. And just still doing that same shtick. It's embarrassing. What makes it worse is that the movie also has like a really big like late game twist. And I'm very certain that Jon Stewart is like incredibly proud of his twist for no reason other than the fact that the credits of the movie feature interview footage of Jon Stewart off camera asking the former head of the FEC if the twist of the movie is possible and could really happen, and the guy says yeah, so you can tell he's just like, oh, I got him, got everybody. But I'm not gonna like give away the twist. Like, if you want to watch Irresistible, like you can do that, I guess. But it's supposed to be this like sort of game-changing thing about the story that makes the entire movie feel like a sham, much the way our political process is a sham. So it's just like this really obvious sort of like, what are you doing here? Like, you're proud of this movie? The thing that gets me about the movie is that Jon Stewart used to be a humongous pop cultural figure, okay? Like, The Daily Show is responsible for politicizing and, you know, getting a lot of young people from the era it was popular into politics. And, like, even to this day, it's still, like, sort of a mainstay even without him. And, you know, he's made another movie. He made a movie called Rosewater. I think that's what it's called. I don't even care enough to look it up. I never watched it. I've never had any interest in seeing it. And here he is kind of back again, rather than trying to do, like, a serious political like kind of drama movie. He's returned to make like a big comedic satire thing, but it's like, it's not enough to just like semi-accurately recreate what is fucked about a specific part of our society and then like pointing at it. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally what he's doing here, is just kind of showing you stuff that he's publicly railed about his entire career since becoming more political in public, you know what I mean? Like, once from like the Daily Show onward, he's always pointed out about how like politics have too much unchecked money and there's all this corruption and no one cares about the regular everyman person and like their political issues and such and such. And like, he's said this shit on the show all the time. And like, this movie kind of feels a little bit like, in a sad way, what the Daily Show kind of was, which is just sort of airing clips of Fox News or some news story being shitty and then pointing at it and laughing. Like, you can't do that for a whole movie. At times the movie feels kind of like those little fake trailers they put at the end of episodes of John Oliver's show, where they're like, hey, here's a fake movie trailer about like a bill that isn't getting passed. But imagine if it was that for like an hour and a half. You would never watch that movie. It's funny for like 90 seconds at the end of an episode of Last Week Tonight. It is not funny in feature-length movie form. Like, I'm not going to say it's not a watchable experience. It's actually much more watchable than I thought it was going to be. About 5 minutes in, I texted one of my best friends, and I was like, this movie is dog shit. I actually just wanted to turn it off and not even bother reviewing it. But I watched the whole movie, and, like, it's watchable. It's just hollow. It's a movie you could watch. I mean, you're home, you're bored, like, it's on VOD or whatever, but, like, it's not... It has literally no value. That's my thing with the movie, is that if it was just a throwaway comedy or something, I would just go, oh, this isn't that funny, but they tried. But it's very clear that Jon Stewart thinks he is using his, like, clout to do good and, like, raise some kind of awareness or be an interesting part of, like, the resistance or something. But in reality, this is not that kind of movie. No one is going to watch this movie and have their opinions about, like, modernity changed. Like, every major fucking terrible thing that has happened this year so far is so much more pressing and like, takes up so much more mind space and heart space. It just feels like this is what you had to offer to the national conversation. Like, I know this movie was made before all this stuff happened, but releasing it now, even, it's just, like, this is so many, like, Trump-era pop culture things are just, more than anything else, they just show how, like, a lot of, like, Hollywood liberal elite people just have no fucking idea about the world and have nothing interesting to say about it. I remember, like, when Trump got elected, a lot of people said, like, oh, art's gonna get so much better, like, movies are gonna get better, there's gonna be so many great songs about all this, and it's like, no, like, all the rich people that make those things, in the mainstream anyway, like, their lives aren't actually that changed by what's happening, so, like, they get these, like, stupid brainworms versions of observations about the world, and then they kind of turn to us afterwards like, right? Isn't this like fucking good? And no, it's not. Like, by the time you get to the closing credits of this movie, like I was like gagging. I was just like, this is so stupid, and there's like a lot of little gags in the actual closing credits that you can tell, like, man, you really thought you had something. Like, you can tell that Jon Stewart really thought, like, this is gonna be like the shit. His weird fake cover version of like a Christopher Guest movie in his mind is like a magnum opus, and like we're watching it and you're just like, there's just nothing here, man. You know, maybe you should just like fully step aside and don't waste any more space in popular culture complaining about the Cheeto Man and campaign finance, and like just like fuck off forever. Maybe that's harsh, I don't know. I just like seeing him promote this movie and seeing him like on Colbert's show.
He's Donald Swamp. Old Swampy Don.
Making like goofy Donald Trump name jokes and stuff, and then watching this movie, I realized like this guy's got nothing. Just nothing. Like, go back and watch like a movie like Ace in the Hole, like a Billy Wilder film that has like such specific acidity for the media and like and different things. This movie is like 50 years old and it's still like super powerful. And you watch something like this and you're just like, this is what our generation's getting. Like, this is what they're shoving on us to like watch, and like, isn't this funny and political? And like, no, it's just trash. Those are my feelings on Irresistible. It is incredibly resistible. You don't have to watch it. Resist watching this movie. If you do watch it, I would love to hear what you think about it. Like, if you guys felt differently and liked it. I always love when people tell me they liked a movie I didn't like in comments, because sometimes people tell me things about a movie that I didn't even think about, and I enjoy the conversation. So after this video, if you've seen the movie, go to the comments. You can, you know, talk about the twist for all I care. I didn't want to spoil it, but I don't care if anybody else does. And, you know, let me know if you think Jon Stewart should ever get to make a movie again. I say no. I'm one vote. Hopefully we get more. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like to listen to me talk about this stuff and you want to hear me talk about other stuff, please consider subscribing. You can hit the little bell icon and get notifications when I drop new videos. I'll probably have a new video out in a few days or something. And I really appreciate everybody watching, and just stay safe, be good to yourselves, wear masks, stop propping up boring people in Hollywood and their opinions about politics because they don't know shit. Bye.